Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents. We've got a big one this week of two of the expected top eight. Firstly, let me introduce you to our Chelsea correspondent. It's Gary Mantle. How are you, Gary?
I'm good, thank you, mate. I'm glad Side's here, so I don't just have to put up with your smugness for the whole podcast.
Why am I going to be smug?
FPL team smashed a derby game 4-1 at the weekend, whatever.
It's your show. I wasn't going to mention it at all, but thank you very much, sir. Glad for you to be here. And Simon Bibby, our Newcastle correspondent here. How are you, Si?
All right, mate.
All right, mate. That's a sunny impression for anyone who doesn't know that. Si was proper prepping himself for that because you're feeling a bit under the weather, aren't you, mate?
A little bit, yeah. But I'm kind of the opposite, James. I'm super happy for you that you're having a good season. I'm not really enjoying FPL that much the last
Can
few
I
weeks, so
can
I'm
I
kind
just
of living
remind everyone this is
vicariously for
like
you.
it's like 8 game weeks gone. We're like a little over on a fifth of the way through the season. It's all a little immaterial at this stage, especially when I haven't got Erling Haaland, Gary. So shall we captain Cole Palmer or Brian Boomer this weekend?
I think if I had the choice, but bearing in mind my biases, I'd probably go for Cole Palmer, personally.
Si, same question.
Yeah, to be honest, we could probably just end the pod here and say I would definitely captain Cole Palmer this week. I can feel a potential Newcastle away London stinker. It's got that feeling in the air. So yeah, I would definitely just
That's
stick it on
interesting
him.
that because if this was Brentford versus Ipswich and Tom and Paul were sitting here, I think they'd both say go Boomo, mate.
Tom definitely would, wouldn't he?
Oh yeah, obviously.
Um, yeah, well, I don't know. I suppose it's a bit of a toss-up, but what Si said is right. Newcastle traditionally don't travel very well. They don't win at Stamford Bridge very often at all. Um, However much that matters when like teams and managers and players change all the time and whatever. But the fact is they don't generally come to the bridge and do particularly well. And if Palmer has one of his days, then you're looking at what, 15 to 20 pointer, aren't you?
We should clarify at this point we are pre-recording on Wednesday, which will certainly be ahead of obviously Enzo Maresca's press conference for Chelsea in Athens ahead of the Conference League game against Panathinaikos tomorrow. Obviously, Cole Palmer definitively won't be involved in that, Gary. For those sitting there with Bukayo Saka at time of recording, you're going to be very tempted to go to Palmer now, aren't they? Yet there's many others thinking of making that move in game week 12. Have you got a preference? I take it you're on Palmer already, are you?
Well, I
Oh
am,
no.
but no, I am, but I was on Saka. And I had originally thought game week 12 as well. And then the more it like the more we went on, and you thought, actually, once you get Liverpool away out of the way, Newcastle home, Man United away aren't too bad. Arsenal at home, it's not the best fixture, but for Saka, that's Chelsea away, which also isn't the best fixture. So you think, well, actually, what am I worried about? And if he does have a big one against Newcastle, he'll be mass bought ahead of Man United. He'll go up point two, maybe point, I don't know. I mean, he's over 50% owned, to be fair. So, but he still might go up a bit, and then you're already chasing him. So why not just get him? Like, I'm not saying that we're definitely going to beat Newcastle, but this isn't a this isn't a fixture for us to be scared of with Cole Palmer. Is the reality. A home game against Newcastle. So
So
with the doubts over Saka, why not just do it now?
I think, yeah. I guess the point would be maybe for people, do they think, oh, I want to go to Sun for free and avoid and then go for Palmer? What would you say to those people?
Um, I don't actually know who your three games are against.
When I say for free, I mean 3 games. So Palace away,
Yeah.
Villa at home, Ipswich at home.
Okay. So yeah, there's a couple of good games, but I know that Palmer is probably a bit more central to what we do than Son is. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I
Am I right
suppose
in
you could.
saying that these three fixtures you've got coming up, Palmer scored in all of the equivalent last season? I got that right.
So,
Definitely scored
um,
against Newcastle. He scored the consolation at
yeah,
Old Trafford, didn't he? He scored a penalty against Arsenal.
which wasn't a consolation at the time, I should point out. I mean, we did
And no,
only
it was an
lose two
equaliser,
one.
wasn't it? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, it
yeah.
felt like you got battered that night, mate.
We should have. I can never remember if that's the one we lost 4-1 or the season before, because
There
both
you
of them
go.
should have been
Yeah, no, it
4-1.
was 2-1
But
last season, yeah.
but he did equalise, so it wasn't like they've just let it all happen. And then Arsenal was a penalty. Arsenal at home, he scored a penalty. So yeah, he did score in all of those games last season.
Interesting.
I'm going to make my second plea to finish this podcast early because I'm not feeling well, and just say I just get him in now. To be honest, I had Saka. I swapped him for Foden last week. He obviously didn't start, and at the time of recording, don't know if he's going to start in the Champions League tonight. Pep seemed like he was quite happy with him at the end of the last game, obviously for taking the corner. So I'm kind of sweating on that a bit. And as a
You can't
Haaland,
sell Foden this way again. We're recording prior to City's game with
yeah,
Sparta Prague, but unless he gets injured on Wednesday night, you because even Foden as a substitute against Southampton, it's half a chance of something good, isn't there?
there is. I just look at the way we're playing at the moment. The run of results we're on, we could easily, having played quite well against Brighton, like we could feel a bit sorry for ourselves and just turn up at Stamford Bridge. If they score early, it's you're looking at 3-0 Stroll
Wow.
probably. So I'd be, to be honest, I think anyone that even has Haaland and is like a bit concerned about the run that they're on and the run that he's on, not getting shots off against like, I just think he might actually be the best captain this week, to be
No,
honest.
leave
Like full
off,
stop.
mate.
I'm honestly, I just
I get
I
it.
think I
People
think
took
we're
on
gonna.
Haaland when he had Fulham and home and at home and stuff, and maybe captain the Saka.
I'm not saying
Not
anyone
you're not
should do
going to not
it.
captain Haaland against Southampton if you
No,
own him,
but
surely.
you look at the end of the game week, I wouldn't be surprised if Palmer's got a little star next to his name, and maybe Haaland has too. But points wise, yeah, I'm very fearful of him. My dad owns Palmer, and I know he's going to captain him because he's a little prick. So that's going to happen. I've
Was
looked.
your mum tall, mate?
He's not that small. I don't know. I call him a little prick. But he's beating me at the moment, and he's not got Haaland as well. So I'd rather cheer for you, James, than him in our little mini
You'd
league.
rather cheer for me than your dad. Okay,
Yeah,
well, let's not
definitely.
talk family issues on the podcast, mate. So you've obviously not got Palmer at the moment. So you saying you're sitting there deliberating going from Foden to Palmer now?
I've tried other things. I've got two free transfers. I could do like a bit of a Trent Watkins. Well, it would mean taking a hit if I did it this week. I don't think I haven't got the funds in my midfield, downgrading Trent and upgrading someone else unless it was like a boomer, which doesn't really make sense. So I'm a bit stuck. So I might just have to like, put a little bit more pride in the badge and go against it this week. And just I'm just quite fearful of it. It just feels like it's set up for like one of those where we could have a bit of a stinker and they could just like stroll because we're always a team that everyone knows that they have to turn up against, but we're also like there are this season quite easy ways to hurt us and play against us and away from home. If you remember the game away at Tottenham last season, I know there was different circumstances with like fatigue and we were going through that run. It just feels like if this game was 3 or 4 weeks down the line, the thing is Chelsea have got two different teams, so maybe it wouldn't even matter. But I don't know. I've just got the warning signs are there. I think for us to potentially have a bad one.
Okay, I want to come back to the wires on some of that, but just Gary, if someone was looking to go Foden to Palmer now for free, you do that or not?
Um, I don't know. But what are you holding for? You're going to hold Foden for this week, and then you might look to get rid of him anyway. I probably wouldn't. But then I don't know that next week is the week to buy Palmer. So, but you could hold Foden for the next three as well, quite conceivably, if you wanted to. It might be that Foden's the one that goes big and Palmer doesn't.
Yeah.
Then the whole swing is going to go towards Foden. I
Um,
think if you've already gone for Foden, I'd be holding him.
yeah.
I've got both if it helps, but
No, I mean, obviously, if we get towards the weekend and it genuinely looks like Foden might not start, then of course, yeah, fair enough. But
mm.
otherwise, I mean, he could really go off in that, couldn't he? He's the best opponent. Like I even said, even if he's a substitute, Southampton seem to be fading the longer games go on as well. So it's not like he couldn't even return off the bench for you as well. And it's not a gimme, this, is it, Gary? You know, there seems
No,
to be
not at
kind of
all.
looking like it's doom and gloom. You two are trying to talk me out of
If
captain and Bumo, and that's the way I want to go. Do you take anything on the historical, Gary? You said you've got a really good record at home to Newcastle.
Yeah, which half the time is just that they've got a bad record at Chelsea because even when we've like not been that good, even when we and when we finished the season with Frank Lampard, we still didn't lose at home to Newcastle on the final day. Now they'd already qualified for the Champions League and it ended 1-1. But I don't remember that many Newcastle wins at Chelsea. Like the biggest one, probably 2012, when we were going
The,
for the Champions League
the
anyway.
Pape Cissé double.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I can't believe you
otherwise,
didn't
yeah.
lead in with the Cisse goal. We're going for the Champions League. That's the Cisse game. That's what that's
Yeah.
called in
He was
history.
obviously going to lead in with what happened in Munich. So
I mean, that's it. We've realised we probably
remember.
weren't going to qualify for the Champions League from top four. Came sixth, won it. But Cole Palmer's not unstoppable. Like Bournemouth defended him really well. Now, part of what they did, this is not necessarily a criticism, but they did kick him quite a lot. Like you make sure that when he's getting the ball and he's 40 yards from goal, you stop him going any further, however you do it. Little fouls, and then you see what the ref does. That day, obviously, booked absolutely everybody. West Ham actually did all right against Palmer as well, to be fair. It's just that if he gets that gap, you know what he's going to do. If he does find that space, if we can exploit something, then he's probably going to finish it. And if you do what Brighton did and you manage to leave a few gaps, then he's going to do what he did there.
okay.
But
You've also only won
unstoppable.
one of 4 home games so far. Now I realise one of
Hmm.
them's against Man City, but you slipped up with 1-1 draws against Forest and Palace at home.
Yeah. Yeah. And we should have won both of those games. We sort of, against Palace, we were the better team for about, 55 minutes to an hour, something like that. And then we just couldn't make it count. And then actually we sort of struggled. Not struggled as such, but we didn't really create much for the last half an hour. Forest, I thought we were unlucky, but at the same time, we quite easily could have lost to Forest. That was a bit of a throwback to last season. But some of the chances we had, like Nkunku, I'd normally expect to score his. Joao Felix had a free header. Cole Palmer did his bit of skill and everything like that. But then at the back, we were a little bit sort of suspect. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Like it could
Palmer's
be
only
if we
scored in
don't
one
win
of
this
those
week.
4 games at home.
Yeah, but he's also scored 4 in 4.
I
So
get that, but
and he assisted.
Bumo scored in all 4 of his, and he's got 5.
In fact, now that you mention it, I don't think we've scored a goal at home that he hasn't been involved in. I think he assisted the 2 in the
And
1-alls
scored the other 4 against
and
Brighton. Yeah,
scored the
that's
other
correct.
4 against Brighton.
Okay,
So
great. You can spin your narratives either way on this. Okay, so
that's it.
what's wrong with Newcastle then? Go on, like, let it out, mate.
Gary was talking about what Bournemouth did. And I feel like 2 seasons ago, Newcastle, we would have probably come with that defensive mentality and probably would have had a bit of that shithousery about us. We lost that last season, but we were scoring a lot of goals. And then this season, I just think like there's everything about the club's been like slightly off. There's been a lot of stuff at the boardroom level. Obviously, like Amanda Staveley leaving. We just had announced that like our CEO is going to have to step down for health reasons. So there's been a lot of instability there. The Howe Mitchell stuff has been like well documented. They've been a bit at loggerheads about transfer policies and stuff. The Gordon new contract's obviously like a good thing that's come out this week. It just feels like everything's like, and to be honest, it all comes back to like if you look at my preseason. I was a lot higher on where I thought we'd finish, and that was down to the fact that I was convinced that we would make the transfers that we needed to. But you know, PSR's fucked us, and we are where the Premier League wants us to be, which is 8th place. So I'm sure they're quite happy that we're kind of like we're in that position. And I just feel like we've kind of lost that a bit of impetus, bit of direction. Feels like we needed a big signing in the summer to really get the kind of club galvanized and like focused in the right direction. I think it may be just that, like a bit of a lack of focus at the moment. I feel like this season potentially could just drift out. We may like turn it around, do something well in the cups, but I don't know. It always felt like this period coming up now with all the other teams in Europe, apart from Chelsea doing their mad like two different teams. It always felt like this is the opportunity to
The
capitalize.
advantage should be yours. Yeah, but it's very early on from that
It is,
perspective,
but
right?
yeah. So we need to like turn that form around sharpish. And I know we've got a better run of games coming up. Part of the reason why I'm kind of coming on at this point in the season, I guess. It just you need to see it first, and it just feels like what are we good at this season? You could always like pin like on an Eddie Howe team like different things, whether it was like the pressing, or like defensive solidity in the first sort of 18 months he was there. This season, it's just quite hard to kind of like look at actually like what we doing. Feels like we're trying to dominate the ball a bit more. I mean, like with Tonali in there, that's obviously going to help. But like Isak, it's been like too isolated. He's had that toe injury. He looked well off it against Brighton. And I think we're just in a position where we're just going to have to try and play him into form. But yeah, it's there's concerns I think like in all departments really.
It's not that doom and gloom, is it? I mean, you're on 12 points.
No,
You're within touching distance. I mean, probably because Chelsea and Arsenal were the next two, that looks quite tough. As you said, there's a really good run of fixtures. I mean, you can make a case Forest away is quite challenging as well. But then as a group, there's a good run of fixtures after you get the Arsenal game out of the way, which is the same for Gary's team after their own fixture against Arsenal the following week. You've conceded 8 goals so far this season, Si, which is one a game. That's the
yep.
same number as Arsenal. Only Nottingham Forest and Liverpool have conceded more. Is that down to the fixtures you've had, or actually are you stronger defensively than we all realise?
I think we're just all right. We're all right at everything, like, but we will pretty much give up a goal a game. So from an FPL point of view, like none of the defenders really appeal. It just feels like how many clean sheets are we going to get? And if we're not scoring two a game, then we're not picking up maximum points. So I just think like we're all right. We're an all right team, and that's kind of we've kind of like leveled out to probably where we should be with this squad. We've still got the same issues that have been present for the last 18 months, 2 years, haven't really been addressed. And that's it. I think we're just like an all right team. Like we could go to Stamford Bridge and go ahead, and it's a different game. But yeah, I think I've been on here a couple of times and I said that like in the tough games if we go ahead, and most of the times we don't. So yeah, it's just we're just an all right team, and I think at the moment I don't know where the rest of the correspondents going to place Newcastle in pre-season. I think around eighth, and I was a bit surprised by that. But actually, maybe I just had the blinkers
No, no,
on.
no, higher, mate.
Was it?
Yeah.
I know.
I had
That's
you in the top four.
I
So
I, I picked
Yeah,
third.
I think
I
I
picked
did as
third.
well.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely buying Chelsea now. I think that's become like quite clear in
You're
terms of
buying
like
Chelsea.
behind. Sorry,
behind.
that's my.
Oh, I was gonna say. I mean, we know there's rumored links here, don't we? We don't need to get into that here and now, do we? Well set up, Si. Does this does this need change then, Si? I mean, you're sitting here. It's October, and you're saying, "Oh, I think the season might peter out a bit." Like, does this need reinvigorating somehow? Then are we talking about a manager change somewhere down the line here?
They need to back him in January, and I think from a PSR point of view, we should having like ticked over into the new candidate. I think we should be there should be money to spend, and I think a lot of the excuses were like Mitchell was like quite hands off in the summer, and for some reason needed more time to kind of really stake his kind of authority on transfer signings, and there was just a lot of strange sort of things came out with that interview that he did. Excuse me. I think they need to back him in January, or it might be a bit of a long goodbye for him this season. I don't see why or how it could kind of carry on if we're just going to do a bit of a Rafa Benitez and like keep the powder keg dry. And I don't think the club really wants to do that. But the question is like, do they now we've had such an overhaul of like at board level, like do they believe in Howe and want him to be like the long-term solution? If they do, then they need to back him in January. And if they don't, I think yeah, there's a possibility that change could happen.
Okay, Gary, how do you see Newcastle?
They're not doing as well so far as I thought they would do. But as you said, it is early, and this might be the time that other teams do start getting a few more injuries that maybe Newcastle won't get as they're not playing as often. I think it looks like there's probably quite a large reliance on Isak being fit and firing up front. And if he's not, then all right, Anthony Gordon's done well, Harvey Barnes has done well, but there's that takes out a massive chunk of what was so good about Newcastle last season. Maybe that's what's been affecting them. I don't know.
It's easy to
Well, I
forget,
think
isn't
because
it,
they've been on a
Si?
bad run, and that's probably coincided with him not being fit.
Yeah, it's easy to forget, Si, that if you'd not had that period, kind of December last year, which was absurd, the amount of injuries you had and stuff, and having to play the same team like every 3 days, you probably would have finished top four last year. We are
Yeah,
8 games into the season. I wouldn't rule you out being in contention for it, mate.
no, I wouldn't either. But you can, we haven't really played. Well, we played quite well against Brighton, but like just look at the way that they compared to the way they played against Chelsea. They knew how to play against us. I don't know whether it was like the 2 week international break and they managed to just completely work like game plan for us. But it worked, and we're just quite easy to play against in that respect. Like there is a way to come to Newcastle and play it, unless you're Tottenham, in which case there's always a different plan. But
It's fun though, isn't it? Win, lose, or
yeah,
draw. It's
I
fun.
enjoyed it. But just yeah, just a bit sadly predictable. Like I do think it's strange, man, because we've got like a good squad, but you look at like the substitutions that were made, and like he's like taking out. We ended, I think, ended the last game with a midfield of Willock, Bruno, and then for a bit Joel Linton, and it's like that's not like a balanced midfield that's gonna.
But that's only one different from probably the three that will start at Chelsea, right? Because probably
Yeah,
be Tonali over Willock, right?
that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like we've got a good squad, we've got the players, and then you've got like the whole Barnes and Gordon thing, and like everyone was calling for like Gordon to play on the right, and it's sort of like sort of worked for a bit, but then like everyone's now like, well, Barnes only really plays well when he comes off the bench, and now he's back on the bench, and Murphy's back in the team. Hall's back in the team. So I think the three calls that I made at the start of the season, like, could easily have gone another way. They have been like, in the first 11, Hall and Murphy. It's just, and then you've got like Trippier was kind of coming back in, and now he's like injured again, and like the whole like Tino, Tonali, and then Murphy thing. And he's like playing Murphy in this weird like right midfield position. He's not like playing like right forward. It's just all a bit odd, to be honest. And I just feel like,
That's to allow Gordon to stay higher, isn't it? When you haven't got the
yeah, and then
ball.
we're kind of moving into a 4-4-2, and then like Gordon's an interesting one. He's kind of like almost it's like his status has gone a level above what it was last year, but then his performances like haven't. And maybe the contract situation now, he'll kind of get back to playing the way he was, but he was playing a bit more like on the man, whereas last year he was very much kind of like team orientated. He was winning those fouls, winning those penalties, sort of playing a bit harder than he is now. And I don't know, it's like he's obviously went away with the summer, and he's had the whole transfer speculation thing with like Liverpool, and yeah, it's been a difficult one. Hopefully everything settles down. I'm just like being paranoid because I'm ill at the moment and a bit depressed. And we'll
I
if we
don't mean to
do.
laugh at your paranoia or your illness, mate.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We're an all right team. We're an all right team, which means that we'll beat we'll beat some shit teams, maybe take a few points off some good teams, particularly at home. And then we'll just throw in a few stinkers. And I think that's just what our season's going to be until we address those issues in our first 11.
Okay. Gary, would it be fair to say Enzo Maresca has exceeded expectations so far?
Um, by definition of the word, yeah, but exceeded makes it sound like by quite a lot, whereas it's not. He's done better than I thought he would do. We've looked better than I thought we would look because he's got quite a lot of his own ideas of the way that we're going to play, and it looked like in pre-season he was really struggling to get that across to the team because we looked all over the place in a couple of games, but we did have like some tough games, City, Madrid, etc. I was really impressed with how we played on Sunday. Um, with that said, we didn't actually create a massive amount with it, so it's also right for Liverpool to go, yeah, but they weren't threatened, so then they could argue that they deserve to win. I would say that we deserve to get something out of the game. And for us, going to Anfield, that's quite a big improvement because, like, when we went there last season, we were barely in the game. So you can see that there has been a change. It would have been nice if we'd beaten either Forest or Palace, and then I'd be saying, yeah, we're looking a lot better this season. We are still up on points in the equivalent matches last season. I can't remember how much we're up by. It's like 4 or 6. It's more than you think it is. Because like we lost at Wolves last season, we lost at West Ham last season, and we've gone and won those, and we lost at home to Forest last season. So
Drew at Bournemouth as well. And obviously
and
won
yeah,
that
that's
this year.
right. Yeah, exactly. So in that regard, yeah, we have improved. Um, but I mean, some of it is still just continuing what Pochettino had done. So we played Everton away on the 10th of December last season. And since then, there's only 4 Premier League teams that have beaten us, which is the 3 that we know are better than us, and the Wolves, who have beaten us twice in that period, but they were both last season.
And we could have done that stat from, that's true. You lost to Wolves home and away, didn't you, last season?
Yeah, within quite a short period of time. But so in terms of where we are, based on what I've just said, we're the 4th best team in the country, and we should now come 4th.
Not got an argument with that. I think I've well documented that once you've got these next 3 out of the way, like the fixture list for the long term looks really good, to the extent I wouldn't even rule you out of getting involved. I don't think you're strong enough to be winning the league yet, but in terms of being part of that conversation, I said on Monday, I think you're the only one that's capable of joining the other 3, and that's where it feels right now to me. I agree with you. It feels like you're stronger than Newcastle, my
Yeah,
team, Villa, but also a bit off the 3 in front. That's where it
it is
feels
quite a
right where
bit.
you are.
It's quite a bit, I think. I think they're definitely, you can see, like, as I say, against Liverpool, well, we didn't manage to capitalize on our possession, and also we were really naive once we got the equaliser to then go and concede within 3 minutes is pretty poor. Against Forest, we, as I said, we were against 10 men, and we were really pushing forward, and we quite easily could have lost that game. So again, you can still see like the sort of naivety from the players, maybe in a lot of ways from Maresca as well. So we're a good way off, like, challenging that top 3, but I don't think I don't think we've got any more, let's say, deficiencies or anything than a lot of the other teams that are trying to get 4th. So
No, I also
I've been
think,
impressed. I've been impressed with what we've
yeah,
done.
I think part of me asking the question of in terms of exceeding expectation is my guess is you feel much more confident about what Chelsea can achieve this season than you did at the start of August. You must do.
Yeah, I do. And even then, it's not as if we've done anything extraordinary. But then last season, we were slipping up in a lot of these games. As I say, we lost at Wolves and West Ham. And West Ham, we made it quite comfortable for ourselves. Um, Brighton at home as well. I know everyone says about the high line, but Hurtler was right. That's not how we scored the goals. But also, second half, they didn't have a chance. So the control has been there. Particularly when we get ahead, we seem to be like seem to have a bit more nous about us when we get ahead. Which is last season, a lot of our games were a bit ding dong. Like certainly Newcastle at home, that sort of swung both ways. It was a game that really we felt like
Three
we were going
two,
to win for most of it. It was
3-2,
3-2.
3-2.
We were a goal up, I think, and then we let Newcastle back in. Then we got ahead, and you thought, oh yeah, it should be comfortable from here, and it wasn't because we went and let in another
Yeah,
goal, and that was pretty typical
brilliantly
of us.
scored by Sidesman Jacob Murphy, if I remember
That's
correctly.
right. But from what I've seen so far this season, I wouldn't expect to see that. I would expect us to be a bit cleverer at sort of shutting the game down, or whether that's just because the players are a bit more experienced, or whether it's because Maresca has like got a bit more about him in that regard. Probably in reality, it's a combination of the two, isn't it? But that's that's what I've been pretty happy with from what I've
Okay.
seen.
So, do you see Chelsea any differently to what we've discussed?
No, I think he made some. I think his approach to the start of the season. We all saw the training ground footage of them when it looked like they'd hire out a wedding marquee to get for all the players to train was hilarious. But I think his approach of like, no, this is my 22, 24 players, and he's picked the right ones. I think like Madueke, I was hoping that he would be on the wrong side of it, and we would be able to put a decent sized bid in for him and get him. And I think he's picked the right players, and he's kind of approached it in a way that I'd say the last couple of Chelsea managers haven't. He's been very clear and direct about like, this is my 11 for the league, this is my European team. Palmer not being picked for the European. I know it's just the early rounds, but even that I think showed like he's got like a very clear vision, and that's something that the team needed. And like we've all 3 of our teams have been in with a sniff or have achieved that top 4, and it's just about consistency, really. Like there's every team is going to beat other teams in this league, and if you can just be more consistent and don't worry about really taking points off those top 3, if you can be consistent and beat those other teams more often than not, you're going to finish 4th. And it could be any one of 4 or 5 teams. I just think this year Villa will find out, like we did last season, that the Champions League, even though it's a different format and they've got a much easier draw than we had last year, is gonna impact them. There'll be injuries. I think they'll drop off a bit. And I think Chelsea, with the squad that they've built, I don't know if it's legal or not, but the way that they've kind of gone about it, and they've got 2 different teams for the competitions, I think will help them, and they'll just be more consistent than the other teams. Finish fourth, and probably finish fourth quite easily.
Gary, is it legal, your team, or not?
Well, what we have that's different to Newcastle is that we managed to sell some of our players. Whereas
And a few buildings as well. Just check around.
there's a couple of hotels. That's it, exactly.
Yes,
No,
later
but I
today
mean,
on Patreon, Money in Football when you can't pull any more levers, starring
that's
Barcelona,
it.
maybe a little bit of Chelsea.
And they don't have any European money this season either. So it all adds up. Hotels, money, youth team. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Women's
that
I don't
team.
know if it's all legal. We'll find out, won't we?
That Conference League pays out some big bucks, as you well know, Gary. Okay, right. So here's how I feel listening to you guys talk so far. It does feel like Chelsea will probably win the game on Sunday at the moment. You're in a positive mood, Gary. Simon, your team is not at the moment, and it feels clear that it's not quite right. So maybe I should captain the Chelsea player with the highest XG so far this season, or should I say the player with the second highest XG in the league so far? That is not Cole Palmer, Gary. That is Nicolas
I guess
Jackson.
it's Jackson. Yeah. Yeah. Who I don't own because I've gone down the Solanke route instead. I wouldn't, but you can. Like he will probably get a couple of chances. What happens quite often is that Palmer plays really close to Jackson, and everything is drawn towards Palmer, and he has that ability to just find that eye of the needle pass, and Jackson's going to get opportunities. I wouldn't captain him
Jackson's got 8 returns in 8 games.
still. And how many's Palmer got?
Bit more. It does help when you get 4 in 1.
Yeah, exactly. No, like Jackson's been good. I've been impressed with Jackson. I didn't really have a problem with him last season. Thought that
No, I
his
know you stuck up
contribution
for him
to
a
the
lot,
team.
in fairness.
Yeah, and he is well. He's a year older now, but we knew that he was quite young and quite inexperienced when he came in, and he is improving. Um, and neither of them would be my Chelsea Player of the Year if I had to vote now. By the way,
Moises Caicedo?
yep, absolutely. I think that's
He
the
was
reason.
incredible on Sunday, mate.
I think that's a big reason our defense has been better in a lot of these games. Is that he's just playing that role so well. And then if we can manage to get Lavia fit as well, then we've got a very good 2 that don't quite fit the system that we've been playing. But another thing that I would say that I've been really impressed with Maresca is he hasn't been wedded to one system, which was our fear after what he was doing at Leicester. Because we spoke about it in pre-season. If he was going to play that system, there wasn't a place for Cole Palmer. And when we played at the start of the season, the first game, Madueke didn't play and Palmer played on the right. And we played a Conference League game and Palmer came on at false 9. And you're like, is that what this is going to be this season? Is it going to be, we're never quite going to fit him in? And he's adapted. And we've sort of built the team around Palmer. I still wouldn't quite say that we're Cole Palmer FC because I think we've got a lot better in other ways than we were last season.
Yeah, I mean,
But
there's definitely differences I've seen tactically. So, for example, take the West Ham game, Cucurella in from left back, go and sit in alongside Casado. Fernandez kind of joins Palmer then as a 10 at the tip of the box. Whereas at Liverpool on Sunday, Casado and Lavia stayed, and Gusto just went as the tip of the box as the left-sided 10, basically kind of a la what Destiny Doggy would do for Tottenham. So there's variations even without in that, which feels to me so far that it's built upon getting the strengths out of the personnel, i.e. that would be a little bit more uncomfortable to push Cucurella quite that high. But Gusto obviously feels a little bit safer. Maybe he's not happy with Gusto in terms of the build-up even as playing as a deeper role. So adjusting tactics a little bit, also based on the personnel available as disposal, I guess, as well.
true. Although he did play Cucurella that bit higher at Bournemouth, and we actually did create a couple of chances. It looks wrong to me when Gusto does it. That's not his position, really, is it? And he always wants to check back inside, and that's not really how we've played this season. I know Madueke does, but Madueke's a bit more natural at doing it. Whereas Jadon Sancho wants to get down the line, beat his man, and create a chance that way. And I've
Ma-
been impressed with him as well.
Malagusto looks like a great right back to me, but
Yeah.
as in someone that can be an offensive right back. Doesn't feel like you're
Mhm.
going to use your players that way, which means people shouldn't get too excited about Reece James, should they?
Not from what I've seen. I think it's long term, it's probably going to help Reece James. If he's not asked to do as much work and not asked to play as often, then it'd be nice if we could just get, even if we could get 20 games out of him for a season, that would be a nice improvement. Yeah.
Okay.
No, he's not. I can't see him being an option in FPL, like, well, for a long time.
Anyway, back to Jackson. I might be
What,
buying him
what,
this. Go on,
what
sorry.
price rises? I've just looked at Jackson's thing. He's up to 7.9.
Yeah, well, when he's got the second highest XG in the league, people are
Yeah.
going to keep investing in him,
He's
mate.
he's 1 point off being in the top three strikers, and he probably will be after this weekend with Welbeck injury as well. So yeah, it's
Welbeck
not
might be fit, by
okay.
the way.
It's a yellow flag.
But part of the shuffle for me, Gary, might mean I might be bringing him in this week. Is there any reason not to?
Jackson. Um, how many yellow cards has he got?
I think
I
he's
don't
on
know the
free,
answer.
isn't he?
This is a genuine question. I think
No,
it's
I
three
think
as
he's on
well.
free, as is Cole Palmer. I
Yeah.
will double check that. Yes, Jackson is on free.
It's yeah.
Yeah, this weekend is because he got booked to the weekend, didn't he? That took him up to three. Okay. Um, it feels a bit like you don't want to. I feel like I wouldn't want to double up on Chelsea necessarily because Palmer's still the better option over Jackson. But
But for me,
individually, is there a problem with bringing in Jackson? Not really.
Okay,
He's still a starting striker. Like that's clear. And Kunku will start in Athens. Jackson will start on Sunday.
go on,
but
sorry.
for my structure, which is Haaland, I've gone Foden as my kind of one premium midfielder, and I've got DCL who I'm looking to ship out at the earliest opportunity. And I've got Trent as well, and it feels like a Trent downgrade is a thing. Like I could do DCL to Jackson, and then I've got 5.5, like a nice Porro. I don't want Porro again, but that gives me
Rude.
some. I owned him at the start of the season, but I'm over that now. It feels like there's an opportunity to do something there, and you never want to say that you're covering Palmer, but just with the structure of having like a Haaland team and having gone Foden, like that might be something actually I look at this weekend.
Well, I'm serious. There's been a lot of conversation about this season, right? So, like, could Havertz cover Saka? Could Jota, Diaz cover Salah? It doesn't feel like we've had the conversation here about Jackson to cover a bit of Palmer because clearly there are a group of people at the moment who are struggling to get there, and I get the desperation to want to get there. But is there an alternative at the moment? We go, actually, I'm going to stick Jackson in, and I'm going to stick with Haaland, stick with Salah, and that gives me Chelsea option.
Probably. I think I would say from an attacking point of view, I'd probably rather have Jackson over Madueke. No, Madueke's going to start all the time as well, and has also been amongst the goals, obviously with a hat trick at Wolves, scored at home to Forest. But I think there's probably a bit more consistency with Jackson. I don't feel like Nkunku really threatens Jackson's place, whereas it is possible. It's not likely, and probably not in the next few games, but it is possible that Madueke could come out of the team. If Neto showed a bit of form, I could see those two switching. But the fact is, Nkunku has shown form. Nkunku, I think, is actually our top scorer this season, but he's still not going to get in the Premier League team in
Stop
all
it.
competitions. I think he is
He
because
can't
he's
have more than Palmer, surely. It's
no, I think
really.
he is because I think he scored a hat trick in one of the Conference League games, and
If
he's scored quite a few.
if something happened to Jackson, touch wood, it won't. But if something happened to Jackson, how quickly would you buy Nkunku as a 6 million midfielder?
I rarely think about FPL while I'm watching Chelsea, but when Jackson did go down at the weekend, I was like,
I nearly bought Nkunku at half time, mate.
yeah, that was it. I was like, I was thinking you'd just stick him straight in because that's who's going to play. If Jackson was out, then Nkunku's going to play, but it takes Jackson being out for Nkunku to play.
Is that a reason not to go to Jackson? I.e., if you were in that scenario, he's going to be two transfers because you're going to sell Jackson, then you buy Nkunku, and they're not the same position. say like with say Duran would come straight in for Watkins under that scenario as a different
I
example.
feel like that sounds like overthinking because
I
you don't
agree.
have to go from Jackson to Nkunku if you don't want to, and can build up a lot more transfers this season. Like if Jackson is going to start for Chelsea, and I'd probably more look to double up from 12 if I was going to double up when our fixtures are good. Great, some could say,
I
but
really might be buying Nicolas Jackson this week, Gary.
I'm not going to tell you not to. But as a Cole Palmer owner, for you, I probably wrongly, as it turned out, figured out that I'd rather have one each from Chelsea and Tottenham, which is why I've now got Palmer as of this week, and I've got Solanke. You could do it the other way around if you wanted to, and have Son and Jackson, but
I,
it
I
felt
might be
more
ended up
like
with a whole
one of
attack
each.
just from Chelsea, Tottenham, Villa at this rate.
Well, we were both pretty good at looking like we should definitely be about to take the initiative and then not doing it last season. So I hope that's not the case, at least for us this season, anyway. Um,
Sarge, go on.
no, I it, that feels like a lot of eggs in slightly inconsistent baskets.
Don't worry about the Tottenham Villa thing. You worry about Nicolas Jackson at the moment. Is there a reason not to buy him?
No,
Thank you. Well, sorry, should I buy Alexander Isak instead?
Mm, not yet. I think there's a time. Their prices look like they might go in the opposite direction soon. No, based on like how off it he looks against Brighton. I don't think now is the. I don't think you want to be taking a punt on Newcastle until we start showing it a bit more. And we did play well against Brighton in spells. And I think Tonali, as soon as he starts hitting 90, assuming like Howe doesn't keep taking them off for Longstaff, I think we will get there this season, and Isak will get there. It might take potentially like Wilson coming back just to put. He just looked like someone that knew that he didn't have any pressure on his place, and Orbs potentially just holding back a bit to get through as much of the game as possible. And the thing with toe injuries as well is like he could just be managing that for however long. So I don't know. I think it's just one to avoid at the moment.
Yeah, I've got Gameweek 12 ringed, and you're going to be joining us ahead of that one. I'm looking at maybe Solanke to Isak in 12.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm back on, am I? Hopefully, I'm
Yeah,
less
yeah.
ill,
Because
less ill at that
now,
point.
because really the question is now, if anyone's still got Newcastle assets, they should probably sell at the moment, shouldn't they, Si?
Givens Newcastle asset still. I
I guess there'll be
mean,
a few people still on Hall, Burn. Might be a few that have Pope. Might be a few that have Gordon.
10% ownership. Gordon Isak still 12 and a half. How much of that's active?
Not a lot.
Hall's down to 2.1%, 4.3.
I mean, Hall's 4.3.
Yeah, he's
And
he's
here's the
he's
thing:
playing.
one of the reasons why you coming back on in a couple of weeks is it is a good run for fixtures for you from game week 12 as well. That's a really good run up to sort of going to Ipswich game week 17, and you might even have the best fixture when you go to Ipswich in that game week in terms of all the top clubs.
Um, which week's that? Ipswich
Game week 17,
17.
I think
Away. It's an away game.
it is.
Yeah, we need to show
City go to
more.
Villa, Tottenham and Liverpool play each other. Arsenal go to Palace.
We need to be showing more away from home to before you start giving us green for away
I
fixtures. I
intentionally
think.
left out Chelsea going to Everton before Gary jumped in and went, "Our fixtures are all right, mate." Yeah, I'll see
we
that.
don't do well at Everton, to be honest. Generally,
There you go. That's why I said Newcastle might have the best fixture in that game week. If people are on Hall, Burn, etc., I guess it's probably dependent on what other defenders they've got, Gary. But can these players be held longer term as something that might be good in a few weeks to start?
you asking me about Newcastle players?
Sorry. I realised you're two different people. I just forgot.
That's right. I was looking at Gary and see whether he was going to answer that or not. I was like,
Gary's like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, we did own half their defense at one stage, didn't we? So you
That's
can
true.
ask me
You know, I
about
mean, you
Hall,
know enough about
Livramento.
Lewis Hall. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
your question to answer side. Sorry.
Right. Do what? So, what was the question? Whether you hold them
Hall,
or not?
Burn, those type of players, if they're sitting in the team, and I guess you're using them as rotationable rather than definitive starters, are they okay to hold thinking about the longer term when you have your own swing of fixtures on the horizon?
Yeah, I just think, we look like we're going to concede a goal pretty much every game at the moment. So, if you want to work that into a rotation, we've got what you're not playing against Chelsea, you're not playing against Arsenal, Forest away. Like we did quite well in the League Cup, but they made some changes in that game. I think they're playing really well at the moment, and Chris Wood will probably play in that game and smash us. So that's not one. West Ham at home, usually goals in that. Don't see us keeping a clean sheet unless their manager's under the cosh and is potentially like out the door at that point. Palace away, probably going to change the manager by then, and then you're into like Liverpool, Brentford. So then you're up to like game week 16. Like I think this season, like transfers are worth so precious that if you can stand it and stomach it, keep them, don't transfer them out. And for that price, like who are you really moving to? Like, is there a Chelsea defender at 4.5? Like I looked at Colwell as someone that I was potentially going to wildcard in, didn't go there. Kind of feel okay about that. I feel like Chelsea are almost a bit similar to us in that they always look like they're going to concede. And that's either because they've gone up by a couple and things get a bit sloppy or not. I would trust them a bit more than us at the moment if you were to compare teams and price brackets.
Yeah, I think your team would be a conversation in a couple of weeks. We'll come on to Chelsea defenders in a sec, Gary, but I just wanted to ask you about Anthony Gordon briefly. So, because the underline's quite good, but I guess there's an influence of a couple of penalties in there. Do you expect Isak to take if you have one at the weekend, for example?
Yeah, I think Isak could be back on them. I wasn't confident about Gordon. Everything was set up for him to miss
Yeah.
that penalty. It's yeah. I thought Fab might have taken that one just given the circumstances, but obviously like Gordon's kind of got that main man mentality now and wanted to take it. It was a shit pen. No, I think Isak will be back on him. He needs a goal as well. So yeah, I think that would. I wouldn't say like Gordon's now on pens, having gone
Okay.
like one out of two.
Gary, if people did want to buy a Chelsea defender,
I was just looking at that to check the price. I would probably go for Fofana, who's 4.5. He's zero point 0.1 less than Levi Colwill, who's already served his ban. He looks like he's going to play the Premier League games. Like Adebayo's nowhere near as good as him, to be
no,
honest.
agreed.
He's not up to speed at all. So his place isn't really under threat. Colwill, he's a bit fighty, isn't he? Gets involved in a lot of stuff. It's like he's due a red card, I feel, because he sort of can't help himself. A lot of like Chelsea supporters are saying that in the future he's going to be the captain. Maybe he is, but I think he needs to sort his discipline out because I think he gets involved in far too much stuff.
I said on Monday's pod, I
Um,
think he needs a leader next to him at the moment.
yeah, and I agree with that. And you're right that Fafana is not that guy. In fact, the most experienced defender we've got is Cucurella, um, and then James, but James doesn't really count. And otherwise, everyone's
No, but if
pretty
James is going to
inexperienced,
sit
aren't they?
there in sort of a right-sided centre back position within possession, that will help
Yeah, I think it would
because
help.
he can lead. I think.
Yeah, and he's fairly experienced despite having missed a large chunk of his own career just through injury. But obviously he was playing in the Champions League final in a sort of right centre back position as well. Um, so I think that would help. Um, really, it's all about can Maresca communicate his ideas to the players through somebody on the pitch, and James is probably a good person to do that through. So that would help.
Okay.
Probably more so than Gusto, certainly more so than like the likes of Adebayo. So
But the best
yeah,
defensive Chelsea asset at the moment, though, if you want to invest, is the goalkeeper, isn't it?
yeah, I'd say so. But you wouldn't go there
Why not?
right now.
4.7 for the team that we think might be the fourth best in the league
Um, is there
with
someone that you'd be
great fixtures
desperate?
coming really
Okay, but
soon.
who are you coming off to go there? Like
Well, more the point
Raya?
would be if you were coming off, say, a David Raya, you're potentially
Yeah.
putting what 0.9 million in the bank. And it might,
Hmm.
I don't think you're sitting there going, oh, I think Sanchez is better than Raya, but that zero point 0.9 might be really handy for someone.
It might be, but at the time that our fixtures get good, theirs do. If you want to save the money, I don't think there's a problem. Sanchez is clearly the Premier League goalkeeper. Jurgensen's not really shown anything to suggest that he's about to come in. Sanchez is going to play. With that said, I don't know what he was doing for the goal that the equaliser that Liverpool scored. He wasn't the only one that sort of made an error in that kind of passage, but he's got to do better there. And a lot of Chelsea fans still haven't taken to him. I don't mind him. I think he's all right. I think he's doing what he's been told to do. I can't see him coming out of the team, so he'd be safe to go there. You're right. It's a decent
You're
price.
certainly at least safe till at least January, aren't you?
Yeah,
Let's put it that
exactly.
way.
Like the Chelsea goalkeeper, given that we are likely to be around top four, should be a 5 million goalkeeper, and he's 4.7.
There you go. I don't think any of them defensive ones offer up anything offensively that would make him the pick over the goalkeeper.
No, and again, I think probably the best one in the air from a corner would be Fofana. So that would sort of slightly sway me towards him. So he's 5 yellow cards away from a ban now because he's just served his ban. But yeah, it's like Cucurella, you're not really going to get any value for that. James, no. Gusto is probably going to play a lot because it seems that Maresca likes him, but he's not shown any particular attacking threat. So,
well, at this moment in time, with James back, we've got a bit of a confliction, haven't we? With James, Gusto, and Cucurella, I guess, kind of competing with each other in one way or another.
Yeah, we've just got a lot of players, haven't we? Because
there's a shock. One more quick fire for you, Gary. What would you say to Madueke owners?
I'll stick with him. I'd stick with him until, if you've already gone there, I'd say until there's an actual reason to sell based on minutes, there's absolutely no harm in like keeping him. Like he's got so much potential ability and he is starting to realize it. What he was like, he was so raw when we first signed him. What he reminded me of, I'm not comparing these two players, but if you remember when Cristiano Ronaldo first played for Manchester United, you were like, this guy is a good footballer. Can he do anything that positively affects the game? I'm not sure. Is he just going to do tricks and flicks? Does he even know that he's got teammates around him that he should be trying to play in? And the more he played, the more he got into that and obviously became the best player in the world. And Madueke's not going to become the best player in the world. And you sort of saw this with Vinicius Jr. at Real Madrid when we first played against them. It's like, well, he's a good footballer, but he doesn't seem to be aware that he's got teammates around him. He's just doing it all on his own. And Madueke was like that. And the more we've gone on, the more his relationship with Cole Palmer has built. And I think, despite what you said about Jackson and like the XG and all of that, those two have got like the highest combined XG this season of assisting one another, I believe, is Palmer and Madueke. So that relationship is really building. And if
there is, didn't Palmer assist all of Madueke's goals at Wolves as a heavy?
Yeah, okay. He did assist the one against Forest as well.
Yeah, so Palmer's assisted all of his goals. Yeah,
it does feel watching those two.
Right.
If Madueke had looked up and picked out Palmer, he'd be like clear as top point scorer in the league.
But I think he's doing that a lot more. I think that's something that Madueke is learning. I think I can see the improvement in him, and I think if you've already gone there, I wouldn't be buying him this week at all. But if you've already gone there, then and you don't need to get rid of him for any reason, I wouldn't be desperate to sell him. He's starting.
That might be the only reason. Like I wouldn't be as hot on Jackson this week. Is I feel like that right side of Madueke getting in behind probably Hall. I don't think he'll switch back to playing Kelly. And then just picking out Palmer with like a bit of a cutback, like I can see it in my mind's eye, like that might be something like a recurring pattern that potentially happens in this game back on that side.
Sorry, is there anything just on Lewis Hall briefly? Was there anything in the fact that he lost his place because Fabian Schär got suspended?
I think so. I think at the time, yeah, there was like the red card in that first Southampton game. Glad you brought it up. I've been wanting to vent about this for a couple of weeks, or months. It just kind of like derailed everything. Like it obviously like everyone was captain Isak in FPL, and that was like a bit of a bummer in it. And then Murphy had to come off after half an hour. So the three picks that I went for at the start of the season, that I didn't have that in the tea leaves. Bab getting sent off for tickling Diaz's head, who I also owned at the time. You can tell there's multiple reasons why I'm not enjoying FPL this season. That'd be one of them. But yeah, it felt like as soon as he was going to come back in the team, then Hall would come back in, and you know, I think he'll play this weekend. He'll have a point to prove against Chelsea, and he's a good player, but he does have vulnerabilities. One of them being turned and not having like the recovery pace. And against Madueke, I think that might be a potential area for them to exploit.
Yeah, I mean, to give him some flowers, I thought he was really good against Man City, Lewis Hall.
He's a good player. He's a really good player.
So, and in a weird way, I guess positionally, you're probably less vulnerable against City because you spend so much time out the ball. You're probably in a more stationary position a lot more often where, yeah, he might get faced up 1v1 on a transition against Madueke that could be quite dangerous. But yeah, I would imagine he'd play. I don't suppose people want to pick him in FPL this week. Gents, thank you very much. Really good stuff. Let's do predictions before we finish. Gary?
I'll tone it down. I think 2-1, hopefully 3-1. But I do think we'll end up conceding.
I'll tone it down. What were you going to say? Like 5-0 or?
No, I was going to say 3-1, but I'm going to say 2-1.
Okay. So you said 2-1 might be 3-1. Okay. So
I think it'll be 3-0 Chelsea. And then we'll beat him in the League Cup.
of course you're playing each other next week as well.
Yeah. So that's what happened. We'll lose in the league, win the League Cup.
That's interesting, that, isn't it? Just on that, there's a headache coming if you win that game, isn't there, Gary?
I don't know. You're the fixture guy, probably.
Your quarter final would be scheduled for your last Conference League game the same midweek. And your Premier League game beforehand is on the Sunday as well.
If only we bought enough players that we had 2 available teams.
Yeah, but you don't want to play Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and it might have to be that. I
Do
think
you
it's
have a
also
third
dependent
team?
on if you got through who you draw as well. There's a chance the game might even get moved into January.
Which one? The League Cup?
I would have thought the cup game, yeah, rather than
Yeah, it
moving
would have
the
to be,
league
wouldn't it?
game.
But they're not going to move Europe, are they? Obviously, so yeah. They don't, but they don't care, do they? They'll happily make a team play 2 days after. They did that at Man City, didn't they? They made them
But
play
that
on the
was a
Tuesday after the
policing
Sunday.
issue, wasn't it?
When's the quarter final, James? Is it in January? Can they go out and buy a third team for the League Cup?
No, it's in December, unfortunately. But of course, obviously, if you moved the fixture into January, which would then move the League Cup semi-finals backwards, it's awkward and complicated. Something to keep an eye on. Should Chelsea win that League Cup tie
Look,
next
just
week?
remember, our Premier League squad is more than 25 because you don't have to register the youngsters. And again, I know Newcastle don't have much of a youth team, but we've got quite a big youth team. So our squad is like 35. So yeah, we've got 3 teams. Give them all a go.
Interesting. I wonder if you might end up playing 2 nights running. They might ask for the Wednesday and just say, look, we'll play because I think Shamrock Rovers is your last Conference League game. Just say, look, we're playing the second team against Shamrock. Fine, we'll play the Wednesday night. I wonder if that's a possibility.
I mean, we will be playing the second team against Shamrock anyway.
But if you got yourself in a position in the competition, which I'm sure you probably won't, where you needed results, that might be different, right?
It could be. Possibly. I don't know because I think they'd still go, well, we'll just play a qualifier and we'll play the. I don't know. We've got nothing to go by, have we? I think they're intent on playing the second team, hence Palmer's not even in the squad.
So, would you rather win the League Cup side than the league game?
Yeah, we're winning a trophy. I mean, we're not doing anything in the league this season. So, yeah, if you said to me, get through in the League Cup, drop points. Last year, I'd have been like, league's the priority, Champions League, build on it year on year. I think we've kind of slightly regressed back to let's try and win a trophy, and then the Champions League is probably maybe another couple of years out for us at this point. And it's going to become harder and harder. So yeah, I think cup focus takes on a bigger priority, and I think Eddie Howe needs that, to be honest. I think I don't know what the expectations from inside the club are on league finish position. I think Europe minimum, and it could be any European competition this year. Very unlucky not to get there, obviously, at the end of last season.
Yeah, it's remember the way it's looking already. 5th is probably going to be enough to get in the Champions League. Let's remember that.
Yeah. Again, like a lot of things conspired against us last year. I think English teams having such a poor record in Europe as well, and that meaning we missed out on Europe. But I always saw that as a potential positive for this season, not having any European competition, and we just need to take advantage of that, both from a league results when other teams are playing twice a week, but also from a cup competition. But our squad depth is quite clear what the first 11 is, and we've got good players sitting beneath that first 11 in most positions, but that doesn't equate to a second team. Like Chelsea's got a second team. We have individual players that all bring something slightly different, and yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how Eddie manages the cup competitions this year, and if we can get Wilson back, I think that's going to be quite important. I don't think he was not going to be back in time for this round, but yeah, later on. I think we lose the league game, but we win the League Cup game. That's the way I'd see it.
Gary, you rather win the league game?
So I was going to say, this is ironic because the exact opposite of this happened last season, that we went to Newcastle and then we played them at home in the League Cup. And last season, I said I'd rather win the League Cup game because of where we were and like what we were building. I was thinking, well, that's a chance of a trophy. Couldn't really see us coming top four. This season, I've always been like someone that would rather win trophies, but currently I think I'd rather come top four. I want to see the
you
progress.
Don't want to see Liverpool at Wembley, is that?
I know. I've seen it enough. I no, I want to see us make good progress in the league. I want to be able to say, yeah, I can see what we're doing now. I can see where this is going. You don't want to be like, yeah, spend all that money and do all of this just to win a League Cup. And the reality is we're already in a shit cup that we should win, which is the Conference League.
Yes.
We don't need another one. So that can be the one where it's like, all right, we did get a trophy because we got that, and let's come top four. And if we came fourth and we won the Conference League, I'd be like, we've had a good season, and I'd be really, really happy with that. So
yeah, I think being in the Conference League really makes you want to sack off the other cups. I think,
yeah,
because you'd think even if you don't win it, you're going to go deep in that, aren't you? You almost can't not. Basically,
no, we will. Yeah. Even for me, I don't want. It's not like, oh, I don't want to jinx it. No, we should be going very deep in that.
Yeah, quite agree. I think that leads to a Chelsea victory this weekend. I'd actually think, yeah, it probably will be. I mean, you're saying 3-0. We'll go in the middle and go 3-1, I think. But yeah, I do envisage Chelsea winning this weekend. Gary, anything you want to plug before we finish?
No, I know everyone always says, oh yeah, I want to like plug the Patreon or whatever, but
don't then.
What I will say is that like in the Slack last night, like we're watching Madrid Dortmund, it's just quite good fun. If you're like sat there and it's like you're just sat talking to your mates while you're watching football. It's like you're getting match day live, and obviously there's other channels and whatever, but it's just like it is fun. It's not about necessarily the additional content, which is obviously excellent, but I'm just saying that the community that we have on Slack is brilliant and it's fun. So I am going to plug Patreon, but I'm going to give you that reason as to why.
Sounds like you're plugging the patrons. All right. Thank you very much, mate. Si, for you?
Just one team in particular, Ledley's Kings, top 10k in the world at the moment. Best. Sorry, you can make me cough. I've not coughed this entire time. Best content creator, not part of the cartel or anything, as far as I'm aware.
No, I'm a Saccharona, so
no,
yeah.
exactly.
Maybe not for long.
So yeah, if you're not already, I'll drop we'll drop his team ID in the chat for this on YouTube, and you can
28015 if anyone wants to look for it. Yeah, I'm sure it's all about to go wrong because I'm not having Haaland this weekend. That feels fairly clear, but I might have Nicolas Jackson. Thank you very much, gents. Good luck for the weekend. Ask James stream tomorrow is 9:30 a.m. UK time. That's because it is a Friday deadline, so you got the deadline stream tomorrow evening at 5:30 on YouTube as well. Clash of Correspondents next week will be on Tuesday, a big one towards the bottom of the table. It's Ipswich versus Leicester with Paul Gore-Allen and Aaron Lagor. Just sees me to say thanks so much to Gary and Si. Good luck, gents. Cue music, please, man child.